Today we're going to be working on a 2015 Acura RDX. We'll be installing a VLine in here, so we'll be removing the radio and display, and we'll show you how to do that. First step to taking out the radio here, we'll be removing this lower piece of trim down here. And to do that, we're just going to use a pry tool, and we're just going to get right between these two pieces and pry down. Do the same on the driver's side. And once that's down, just push down to get all the clips loose, and then we'll have one plug right here in the middle. And from there, this will just pull straight out. So now that we have the panel removed down here, there's going to be two 8mm Phillips head bolts that are back here that hold the radio in. There's going to be one on the passenger side and then one on the driver side over here. And to access those, you can unplug these two plugs right here, that one, and there's a larger one right here. There we go. So these two plugs here that go to the AC controller, once those are unplugged, you'll be able to see a better view of them. So we'll go ahead and remove those now. And there's one out. Okay. And I'll get the second one out here. And now that those two screws are out from the bottom here, the whole radio will actually pull out. So we're just going to pull on the bottom, and then to loosen up the clips around it, we're just going to use our pry tool. There we go. Do the same over here. And once it's loose, you'll be able to pull this out. And we're just going to undo the top plug right here. And this is for the hazard switch. And here's a better view of that hazard plug. It's normally right here. And you just push it on the clip on top and unplug that. And once that's unplugged, we can pull this out further. And we're just going to start removing all of these plugs on the back here. You can go ahead and cut it. There we go. So now we've got all of these removed. And we can pull it out a little further. And we're going to have one clip back here that holds all the harnesses in place. So we're going to take that out. To remove this clip, we just pressed on both sides of it here, and it'll slide out of place. And then for the bottom plugs here, we're going to remove those. And now we've got the radio removed. So now we're ready to install the main harness here, the MCF HADD. We're going to connect this 12-pin connector here at the back of the radio, and then we'll go ahead and go to our 5-pin connector here for the knob, and we'll connect that to the factory side, and then the male pin here, or male port, is going to go into the lower part of the radio. And now we have our reverse wire here. We already connected the P-tap, but you'll just need to strip the end here, and then slide the stripped wires into the P-tap, and then you'll just screw the bottom on here. And now that we have that done, we can move on to connecting the reverse wire. Alright, so the reverse wire, we're actually going to connect that to this one here. It's going to be a 16-pin connector, and we're going to be going to pin 15, which in this vehicle is a gray wire. We're just going to put the bottom part on and screw. And the needle from this is going to go into the wire to make a connection. And that'll give us connection to the factory reverse wire. And now we can move on to the rest of our harnesses. Now this harness here is going to be our display harness, and this is going to plug into the same 16 pin that we just used. If you don't want to use the P-tap here, but you don't want to mess with the factory wiring, you can actually P-tap here to the 15 or pin 15 on our 16 pin connector, or you can military splice in, or however you'd like to do it. You don't have to connect to the factory wire since we actually have the 16 pin here. So now we're going to do the GPS antenna next. You can just put this on the dash if you'd like to, but for our installs we do like to make them clean. So we're going to be putting it underneath this cover for the display. And to pull this up, you just simply pull up on the bottom here. We're going to get these 4 clips out for that. And then if you just pick up on the top part here, this will actually come loose. And then we'll just have one connector back here to unplug. So now we're just going to stick this right up here, and then we're just going to run the cable down behind the display to get to the radio. So we put the GPS antenna up here, and then we ran our wire back to around the middle of the display, and then we just pulled our wire through underneath. And then from there, there's a little hole here that this factory wiring goes through, so I went through that. And after all that, you should have your GPS antenna plug behind the radio, and we can run that to the glove box next with the rest of the wires. And so now that the GPS antenna is in and cable managed, we can go ahead and put the cover back on. There we go. And once that plugs in place, you can just line all the back pins up. And then these front clips here, just push down. And we should be all good. So we're going to be installing the V-line in the glove box here, and we're actually going to put it on the top up here. And we're going to run our wires down, and we're going to go through the cabin air filter cover. And so we're going to pop this out, and we are going to put a notch in this for our wires to run through. And before we do that, we are just going to go ahead and run the wires through so we can see how big we need to make that notch. So all of our wires back here that go to the V-line, we're going to run those through back here to where this light is in the very back. And we'll show you that next. So we've already ran one through here, our display cable. And next we're going to move on to the power cable here. And there's plenty of room back here that you can pretty much push your hand all the way back and touch your hands together when you're pulling these harnesses through. So you shouldn't really need a zip tie or anything like that to pull these wires through. It should be really simple. And next we're going to do the GPS antenna. And then for the GPS antenna, we're going to put some of the slack here behind the radio itself. There we go. And we're going to try to put this back to the side a little bit. That way it doesn't keep the radio from going in. So now that we've got everything cleaned up wire managing wise, and we've got the wires ran to the glove box, we can go ahead and reconnect the radio now. So we're going to go ahead and start doing that here. There we go. So now we've got all those up top connected, and then we've got the two on the bottom down here that we need to connect. We've got the one for the knob here. Just got it. So we've got the knob connected there, and then we've got the other one here. And that's going to connect closer to the driver's side. And now that those are all in place behind here, we can start to set this in. And before we put it all the way back in, we do want to plug in the AC controller at the bottom again. So we're going to want to make sure those plugs are still exposed, and we want to make sure that none of our wiring is behind the AC controller. There we go. And then before we plug in the AC controller, we do want to put in the two Phillips heads, 8mm on the bottom. So we are just going to go ahead and push this into place now. And now we'll move on to those two bolts and then the AC plugs. So right now we're putting the bolts in. We're just going to hand thread them for now. I'm not going to tighten them all the way with my hand, just enough to where they don't come loose. Go. So now I've got both of those tightened back there, and we can move on to plugging these two in. Alright, and now that the AC controller is plugged in, the last thing we'll have to do is put in our panel here and plug it in. And we're just going to slide this into here. And then we just have to line up the clips on the back first. There we go. And then you want to tuck in these two parts here. There's one on the passenger and driver side. And then just push up. And now we've got everything fully installed and we're ready to test it out.